Hello and welcome to a video pertaining to the new Supreme Court ruling about LGBT discrimination in the workplace and other things such as that. And let's go to talk about this. Now, in a 6-3 decision, surprisingly, you have people, all the Democrats on the Supreme Court, all the liberals, Neil Gorsuch and Justice Roberts, who's the chief, to basically allow people to federally sue under Title VII of the 1964 civil rights legislation passed by Lyndon Johnson and the Congress at the time. And it basically lets them sue. And this is terrible news for conservatism in general because it's not even constitutionally correct. It's not even textually correct. And people have the certain notion that Supreme Court justices are supposed to read the law as it is. But when you read the law as it is, there is nothing about homosexuality covered in that LBJ civil rights bill. It just isn't there. Now, the argumentation behind this is necessarily that that the government protects sex discrimination, meaning that you cannot not hire somebody, or you cannot discriminate on a person just because of their sex and their gender, which is interesting because what does that have to do with homosexuals and transgenders, really? And you could argue whatever you want, but the point is that Neil Gorsuch, who's supposed to be a textualist, is supposed to read that bill and say this was not covered on purpose. And if you look at history, you would know that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats of recent years have been pushing for separate legislation to allow queers to not be discriminated against, or more importantly so, for them to sue federally and drain a company of its resources, especially if it's small, if on the basis of them being queers, which is interesting to me because this really strikes a chord with the small businesses that happen to be Christian as well. If I am the owner of a store, and this is seen in the Hobby Lobby case, popular opinion with Chick-fil-A, it is just showing that devout Christians and Catholics are being persecuted insofar as they are not allowed to operate their own companies without having to be forced to not discriminate upon them being gay, which is very interesting to me because you don't need at all to understand the point that while maybe you shouldn't discriminate in secular organizations based on gender or based on age or based on other things, you should be able to discriminate upon the basis of transgenders in a Catholic, adoption center. Or like I said, you should be able necessarily to officiate a wedding in your own terms and not have to do things your own way. Gay people shouldn't be able to sue federally churches that do not want to wed them. At the same time, the gays and the transgenders shouldn't be able to federally sue and drain the resources of a company like Chick-fil-A that may or may not want homosexuals in their premises nor being employed by them. And it is just astoundingly just another small step at really diminishing the rights. Not only the repression of the homosexuals is being lifted, but not only that, but the repression is falling upon the Christians as they are not given the First Amendment right to believe what they want within their own confines. And it is going to go to the point where maybe there's hate speech laws, or there's something to the point, something in this country that will teeter on a full-on Cristero type rebellion, conservative revolution. Because how else are we going to win? If we have 5 conservative justices, how are we going to protect our civil liberties as Christians and Catholics when we have Neil Gorsuch and Justice Roberts stabbing us in the back? They're supposed to protect our liberties, not that of the queers and the people that are mentally ill, that are disgusting degenerates. Why are we supposed to be able to get sued by them over their own faults? If I don't want a drug addict in my company working for me, that's okay. And if I don't want women or Muslims to be working in my company, that should be fine. And if people want to boycott that store, that's okay. But they shouldn't be able to federally sue or incriminate a company on the basis of them discriminating, really. And, before liberals said, well, you can't discriminate on race or on gender, which is Debatable, but even then, that makes a lot more sense and is a lot more reasonable even than necessarily going to this huge mile, this huge stretch on protecting gay rights. What is next? What is next? Really, what is next? You give them an inch, they take a mile, and it's proven. Conservatives have been losing most battles in terms of social conservatism progressively, and it is just astoundingly weak that we will see such fecklessness from even our Supreme Court justices, which are supposed to be the old guard, right? They say old white men. Well, if these old white men are losing to the liberals, what do we have left? It is just a travesty to be noted, and it's very disappointing. And even Ben Shapiro is against this. So if I know Ben Shapiro is against this ruling, then I know that any person to the right of that should be disappointed. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. How mad are you guys? Comment that down below. Alright, guys, goodbye.